I'm Billy Mills. You're on native ground.
Brothers! What we do in life echoes in eternity.
We were all wounded at Wounded.
I'm Sterling Harjo, filmmaker, and I'm on Native Ground.
09, Native Ground 09. Sundance Film Festival.
I'm Laura Spencer, and you're on Native Ground.
Hi, this is Bird Running Water, and you're on Native Ground.
Well, I'm Trudy Styler, and I'm a human rights activist, and I'm married to Sting.
I'm John Proudstar, and you are watching Native Ground.
Bonjour, ninda shwin wago shindigo migizi indodem gazaga squaji mekage jinakadi wishkonigan wen jibayan mino anishinabe wa king indaya. I'm on native ground. Okay, so I've been asked to speak a little bit about native language revitalization, and I couldn't imagine anything more critically important for native people to be working on right now. I think this is a make or break time for many native languages in the United States and in Canada, and at stake is not just languages or birds singing in the forest, but really our very identity and survival as native people. I know each tribe has different ways, but in different languages, but for the Ojibwe people, where I'm from in northern Minnesota, language is critically important and contains a lot of different ways of thinking. One example that comes to mind is that in English people will say things like respect your elders, but in the Ojibwe language, when we use words like Gichiaya'a, which is our word for elder, it literally means great being. Or the word we have for an elderly woman, Mindemuye, meaning one who holds things together. It describes the role of the family matriarch. So no wonder in English, when you use words like old woman, elderly woman, aged woman, there's an entirely different concept behind respect for age. And those sort of native ways of thinking are very much embedded in our language. To lose our language is to lose our way of thinking and believing and looking at the world. It's also really the cornerstone of our sovereignty. After all, what is it that makes France, for example, a sovereign nation, is having a land that is France and a language that is French. And should they lose that, they really wouldn't be Frenchmen anymore. And I feel that this is the struggle that is before us as native people. You know, there have been lots of immigrants who've come to the United States and come to Canada, but after 5 generations or so, when the full-blooded German man is no longer speaking German, he's not really German. He might have blood, but he doesn't have connection to place, and he doesn't have connection to language. In fact, if you took a full-blooded German immigrant who's been here for a few generations and sent him back to Germany, he wouldn't fit in. He wouldn't understand anybody. He wouldn't internalize the culture. And that's where we're heading if we don't do something about language revitalization. At the same time that we have all of these challenges and this heavy weight in front of us, I feel very, very hopeful. And a lot of native groups have been very successful at revitalizing their languages. The Maori went from 7% fluency in just elders who were primarily over 70 as speakers to 100% fluency coming out of their schools. It's the official language of the entire country of New Zealand for native Maori and everybody else. And the Hawaiians have had very similar success, as well as Blackfeet, Mohawk, Crow. Some of the other tribes have been making real inroads in revitalizing their language and their culture. And I believe that language revitalization has to be very much interlinked with cultural revitalization. It's impossible to really separate them. And ultimately, that should be our goal. You know, I think a lot of native people have misconstrued ideas of what it means to be native Some will say it's simply blood, or it's enrollment in a federally recognized reservation. And I think neither one of those things is the defining feature of who we are. It's much more about our language and our culture. There are lots of people who cannot get enrolled in a federally recognized reservation, but are perfectly good, fluent speakers of their language and participating in their culture on a regular basis. And to me, they're Native. At the same time, as I explained with the immigrant situation, we can have blood, but that doesn't necessarily mean connection to identity. And so, to me, language and culture is really where we need to focus. Regardless of where people come down on the issue of language and culture, I think everybody would find agreement that they're concerned about basic issues of community health, individual health. They're concerned about the youth, gangs, drugs, alcohol, and I think you'd be hard-pressed to find somebody who thinks those are not issues to be concerned with. But in spite of that, the most successful tools we have to revitalize individual and community health are embedded in our culture, our ways. And the most successful tools we have to create academic achievement in our youth are embedded in our language and in our culture. And to give just one simple example of that, when they started the Wadukudading Ojibwe Immersion School in Hayward, Wisconsin, the first people who came there as students were families of those who had started the school and kids who really didn't fit in the other schools. Some of them were labeled, behavior disabled, learning disabled, and really their parents sent them to the school on the chance that it would be a better experience. So they had a pretty mixed cohort for their first students. And when over half the kids at the reservation school were failing their tests in English and math, 100% of the kids at the immersion school passed their tests in English and in math. And that just goes to show that when kids learn their language and learn about who they are, that translates into self-esteem and success and academic achievement in a way that no other tool has ever been able to do.